All right, Richie Mars, we are 6 weeks away from Dave Meltzer predicting this match for the women's at Survivor Series. What do you think of the 6 weeks leading into this? And are these the correct 10 women's for this women's war game match?
I think this field is pretty stacked, all things considered. It has a mix of new talent, old talent, returning talent, and well-established talent, which is what you want in a War Games match like this. And I feel like everybody in this match is in a position to succeed. I don't really feel like there's many opportunities in comparisons to past women's War Games matches where things can feel a little bit clunky. But getting to this moment where you have the Kabuki Warriors and the Rhea and Io Sky feud issue happening. Then you transition from Charlotte and Alexa and Kabuki Warriors, and then you have Nia attacking Charlotte and Alexa. And then you have Lash Legend being called up, and the AJ and Becky feud. All of that's kind of blended together to get to this point. And in terms of like traditional Survivor Series, like team building, sometimes like the teams are built naturally, and other times it's like, oh, these people are in a story, these people are in a story. Let's combine them together. And I think a lot of people perceive that as lazy booking or anything like that, or a lazy portrayal. Personally, I'm fine with it as long as there's more of an explanation on why everybody is teaming and why they are the way they are. And for the most part, I think all the separate stories, the little side stories to make this one big story, have been pretty successful, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, they've taken 3 feuds and kind of melded it into this War Games match. Becky and Asuka crossed paths about 3 weeks ago and side-eyed each other, and perhaps that was a gesture to kind of get us to War Games when they hadn't even announced War Games. Rhea and Io have been attached at the hip pretty much all year, and then there's been this feud with Asuka and Io and their separation. So that's kind of that third. Then you have Charlotte and Alexa. I guess they just lost the women's tag title. I guess they're feuding with Nia and Lash. Lash and Nia, is that a random pairing? Perhaps, but I like the optics of it. And then of course AJ Lee and Becky Lynch joining to be the fifth members on each end here. And of course they're kind of in the midst of their big feud. And Becky just lost the IC title due to AJ popping up. And I don't know, it's not the worst. It's like Band-Aid-ish on making it all go together, but it's exciting enough to make it interesting enough, and it should be good. I like Lash kind of having a coming out party. I like Nia with Lash, and Nia doesn't have to be the focal point of being the monstrous woman, where last year trying to make her look like that monster was a real negative, in my opinion, for that 2024 match. Asuka's hitting on all cylinders. Kyrie's an excellent foil. And then Becky has an edge. That's the heel side. The women's side, AJ Lee returned. She was pursued by Rhea. Rhea is kind of the de facto team captain here. Io is by the side of Rhea, like we mentioned. And then I like this build for the characteristics standpoint from Charlotte Flair.
Mm-hmm.
Like, of course, the glue to the new Charlotte is Alexa. Alexa saw an opportunity to kind of getting them back on track here by gaining this match after just losing the title. And I like that Charlotte was like, all right, I have to look back on my path. Rhea is a historically big rival of mine. Do I really trust her? But in myself and my characteristics of me growing into this character that I'm growing into, do I need to grow into forgiveness? Right. So was it perhaps a little microwaved, like your word earlier, perhaps, but I like that for Charlotte.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do like they at least reference the Rhea and Charlotte issue because historically they haven't been getting along. And majority of the Charlotte Rhea story, like their matches can't be denied. You could argue that both the WrestleManias that their matches happened stole the entire WrestleMania card. However, with Rhea and Charlotte, I wish they would have dove a little bit deeper into their own stories because they kind of parallel in a way. Because this year you have Rhea and Io, with Rhea learning to accept friendships more and more because, she was betrayed by the Judgment Day and she was angry at Io and Bianca previously because she thought that she was stabbed in the back, but then she let down on guard and now Io is her best friend on the main roster. And then you have on the opposite end, you have Charlotte and Alexa, with Charlotte learning how to accept friends as well. So there's that common denominator where it's like, hey, I learned how to trust this person. You learned how to trust this person. Let's just try to have like a clean slate together. And then you could build upon that Rhea and Charlotte story. I did like how they had that cinematic kind of segment that they had on SmackDown, but I felt like you could have dove a little bit deeper. And I feel like
Yeah.
WWE is kind of hesitant on doing that with either Rhea or Charlotte because they're already such pre-established characters that they don't want to kind of go a little bit more into their psyche and see how their mind works, or let them at least be vulnerable. And I feel like them being vulnerable with each other would parlay that kind of like feud, relationship, partnership to a little bit more of a level. With Nia and Lash, I did like how they explained, like, because Nia and Lash actually feuded in NXT, when
Yeah.
Nia was there for a little bit. I did like how they at least addressed that issue where Nia and Lash is like, hey, look, we fought each other, but we realize that we're better with each other than against each other. So that's why we're a team. It's like, is it the best explanation? Maybe, maybe not, but at least it's an explanation on why they're together. And
Yeah.
Lash is actually my pick to be probably the breakout in this entire matchup because she has the most to prove if you really think about it, because she's just newly called up. And I feel like on the opposite side, she has a lot of great workers to work with in order to help showcase her stuff. And I feel like this could be a breakout performance for her.
With Lash Legend, it's probably going to be a rough night to be Io Sky and Alexa Bliss to make her look menacing, right? So it's like, sorry, ladies, this is your role in this match, right? All right, let's look at the center of this poster. AJ Lee and Becky Lynch are at the center of their teams, obviously by design. Not the right pick for the WWE to put them in the center.
Marketing wise, yes. Storyline wise, I'd probably have Asuka in the center for her team, and I'd have Rhea in the center for her team. But with Rhea being out for a little bit due to that nose injury, I feel like that kind of impacted the story just a little bit. It felt like the story really kind of took a couple steps back because of Rhea's injury, because she did get injured on that tour of Japan. And then her and Io were just written off for a couple weeks, and they explained the Kabuki Warriors took them out, and that's why the Kabuki Warriors got the tag team title shot while they were gone, which storyline wise does make some sense in just establishing the Kabuki Warriors as the top women's tag team. And this match, low key, is building a lot for the women's tag team division. This has been a sneaky good year
Oh, very
for
good.
the
Yes.
women's tag team division, arguably their greatest year of this entire like run with the women's tag team title
Hell
in
yeah.
general. So I'm really interested to see how that formulates coming out of this match. But with AJ and Becky in the middle, yeah, it just kind of makes sense for marketing wise because AJ still newly re-signed to WWE. Becky has had a great run, probably arguably her greatest run in my opinion in WWE, because she's just been a perfect heel in the sense where she is making whatever making whatever title she touches hot, like the women's intercontinental championship, and at least attempting to build newer names and newer faces, and is okay with getting egg on her face, which every heel should be, instead of being that cool heel.
I think Becky is an excellent heel. I think she knows her roles. She knows how to execute it. And she is having a very banner-ish year and really did a great job establishing that Intercontinental title. We'll see what it does with Maxine. I think it's more of a moment and
Mhm.
more of a let's see what kind of happens, but I don't think they'll put the equity into Maxine to really make it work. And I think that
Mhm.
Becky will gain it back sooner than later.
Right.
And it was really more just to kind of give this match an edge too. And the belt should be, especially that the belt being so new, it should play, I don't want to say ping pong, but it should be made around moments,
Mhm.
to kind of establish it as well too. So I don't hate it. All right, EO, is she kind of lost in the middle of this from a star power standpoint and a presentation standpoint?
The star power standpoint, like her star power is different in at least with war games. Io has been the standout in terms of the big spot of the night. You know what I mean? The trash can, the dives.
She's been in
So
every War Games too, mind you.
yeah, every woman's war games, and I believe that's including NXT too, correct?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So she's like a veteran of this war game setup. Star power wise, this was a breakout year for Io as well. So she is still gaining that traction among the audience of being like, okay, she's going to be a normal headliner with all these women. And majority of these women are already established as top names. Rhea, Charlotte, Becky, Asuka, AJ, Alexa, those are like the top names in terms of these are our women that we're building around from the past, present, future, what have you. And with EO, what's going to work for her is her ability, not only for match quality wise, selling wise, and spot wise, that she's probably going to be, in terms of moments of the night, she's probably going to have the top 2 or 3 if I were to harbor a guess.
Yep. All right. So there are 2 women's world title matches at WrestleMania. I suspect Rhea to be the only one to have a world title match. Am I
Mhm.
wrong?
Out of these women right here, let's
Yeah.
see. I could see Becky potentially. I could see Becky
Yeah.
potentially.
And then
Um,
Charlotte, perhaps, right?
And yeah, Becky, Charlotte, anything. I think it'd be interesting to stretch out the Rhea and Io story until WrestleMania because I feel like their story actually deserves like that WrestleMania moment, whether it's for a tag or them versus each other. Because you still have that underlining story of Rhea and Io always winning and Rhea never winning. Is that going to get in between this friendship that's been established and very popular among the audience? Which I think is a good call. And the big question mark is what AJ is going to do at WrestleMania because you still have the Becky Lynch feud going on, but does that have enough juice to get to that point? So there's a lot of interesting scenarios that you can play with, at least right now. And
Yeah. I could see AJ being like an intercontinental title champion by that time, and then having one of the girls that's not in the main events at WrestleMania from the women's side of things fall into like a dream match versus AJ, right? Like a
yeah,
Bailey, perhaps, right? So
yeah, like a Bailey, a Roxanne, like
yeah.
anybody like that.
So
And what I do like, just talking about the team building aspect here, because Survivor Series, like I mentioned before, you have some pretty clean team builds, and then you have some pretty chaotic, messy team buildups. And there are some times where the messy buildups are going to go off the rails really quickly, but then there are some times where the team buildups are actually, oh, okay, this is actually going to work to its benefit. For an example, like a messy team buildup would be Team Cena versus Team Authority, right? Where it's like the teams just kept changing every week due to injuries, due to storyline pivots, anything like that. But then you have the messy, clean buildups, like the Team Austin versus Team Bischoff, where it's like everything just kind of made sense with people recruiting everybody. And with these teams overall, it's going to be really interesting to see the landscape of the women's division post this match.
all right. I believe we're getting a women's advantage match on SmackDown. I did not read the spoilers, but I believe I saw Asuka versus Charlotte. I don't know if you saw them,
Correct.
but
I do know who wins. I'm not going to spoil it here for
yeah,
anybody.
please don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the match. So,
Mhm.
that's a good one-on-one match, has historical reference, and it's fresh enough to kind of draw in an audience the night
Yeah.
before, right?
And it also plays the story that Asuka was the one who injured Charlotte Flair those couple of years ago. Around this same time period, I believe like a year or 2 ago, that's when Charlotte tore her ACL, MCL
Yeah.
in that matchup. So,
Tribute to the troops. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of history between Charlotte and Asuka. I still defend Charlotte defeating Asuka for
Me
WrestleMania
too. I think it's
34.
fine.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think
it's
it's
like a
fine.
fine decision. But yeah, like team advantages, I always like. I wish they would do like maybe the 2 out of 3, matches.
Yeah.
But one and done, that's also fine too. Saves the other women for potentially not getting hurt. So I understand why they do that.
All right, we're kind of at the end here, Richie. There was a lot of meat to kind of sink our teeth into here, but not like depth wise, right?
Yeah.
It's a unique matchup, so a little short for us. But I do want to pick a winner,
Mhm,
and I don't think it's kind of laid out to be an absolute winner.
mhm.
I actually think that the men's side of things will kind of indicate perhaps which side of the fence would they may want to have win here
Mhm.
because a heel's going to win at one point, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I think the heel side of the men are going to win. And it's like, do they want to have a feel good moment here?
Mhm.
So
Uh,
do they kind of go with like a Rhea, a Charlotte, or an AJ pinning like I don't know, maybe even like honestly, they could if it's AJ, she could pin Becky again to kind of
mhm.
add flames to that fire. If it's Rhea, she could pin like an Oscar to prove a point. And if they want to really give Charlotte juice, Charlotte could tap out like a Naya or
Mhm.
an Oscar or something like that. So I'm leaning baby faces here, believe it or not.
Mm. I have the same sentiment. I do believe the heel side on the men's war games is probably going to come out victorious.
Yeah.
And I feel like the babyface win here would be a lot more strong in a storyline sense
Yeah.
because you can have people afford to take the loss more on the heel side than the babyface side, and still kind of go on track with the same stories. Like you could have Asuka tapping out, you could have Kyrie tapping out, you could have this like 3-person submission where AJ does the Black Widow, you have Charlotte do the figure 8, you have Rhea do the Prism Lock, and then like you could get like a tap out from one of the 3 or all 3 of those
Yeah.
matches, and then everyone would still be pretty well versed into their own separate storyline. So I think the baby faces are probably going to win here.
So it's like historically, this is the 4th women's War Games match. I don't love the repetitiveness of having it every year, but I understand why. And, you know, you kind of accept it. You rather build to it instead of build around it because it's War Game season. But that's a trope that we all probably agree on. I know in 2022, the babyface women's won. I think Damage Control lost in 23. And then last year, I don't know. I can name 1988 winners, but last year, who the fuck won the women's War Games?
I think it was Team Rhea. Team Rhea defeated Team Liv and Nia.
I'll take your word for it, buddy. Right?
Yeah.
So that would be 3 in a row for the women baby face side of things. So perhaps they maybe want to kind of add a kink in that wrench, you know. So we'll see. But we both think the baby faces should win and will win. Interesting, Richie. So Richie, it's been a while. It's kind of a down period. Saturday night's main event was at the end of October for us to preview it here, and I don't know, man. We get Cena's coming up, so I think we get something in the works for that. And after that, shit, Saudi Rumble is not until the end of January.
Yeah, we got a long way to go. It's going to be one of those long periods where it's like, it's going to be a slog to get through. But once we're at Rumble time, it's going to be like no time has passed.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Richie. Retold Richie Mars, TikTok, Instagram. Check him out. Thank you, Richie.
Thank you for having me.